Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for the week of June 18th through the 23rd of 2020. If you've never watched the show before, make sure that you check out highvibe.tv. This is where I do the show exclusively, and of course you get it in full content, but today I am streaming it to YouTube in full form because this is such a major time and I want to make sure that everybody in the world gets this information and can pass it around. But please, what keeps this going is by being a member of High Vibe, where I do all my daily video horoscopes. I do so many horoscopes, and so many others do horoscopes and other kind of channeling to so much on our own platform, highvibe.tv. There's so much going on there, and I truly appreciate it. Now, this show typically is done out in the studio. I'm actually doing this in the lounge studio here at highvibe.tv. I am doing it on my own, so I'm praying everything's going good. I'm like watching things from the other side, so it looks like we're good. But this is where I channel the astrology for the week, and then I go deep into the charts, which are brought to you by Astro Gold, which you can get on iOS, Android, or any Mac device, or if you're on PC, you can get it on Solar Fire. So today I'm going to be talking to you from this little set that's going to be changing here in the next couple days. All the stuff's been ordered and we've cleared a lot of things out. This used to be when we did events here, but unfortunately due to the events of the last, 4 months of life that we've all gone through with lockdowns and stuff, we can't do events here at our studios. So this used to be the lounge, and actually the last event here we had was New Year's Eve, and this used to be the room that there's a cool table here, people will do tarot, and then on where I'm going to be after this, where I do the charts, is where we would do VR, where also this was a talent meeting room where all the talent at High Vibe would come in, watch their videos, we'd see where we can make it better and so forth. So this room is being transformed into so many different things. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Always my channel, being the Leo King, this is the birthday week of the Leo King. So some people, it gets a little confusing. Before I go into this, astrology, I want to just tell you all thank you. But when I started this, I was just David Palmer Astrology. The channel, I think, it says December 7th, I think, of 2011. It wasn't until June 19th of 2013, after months prior to that in 2013, that I was building the whole idea and the concept of the Leo King, the logo, which I think you probably see somewhere down here, and the whole brand, and also creating the corporation and so forth. And that was actually even years prior to just being David Palmer Astrology on YouTube. I was on Soul Garden. It was just David Palmer on there. And so I just want to say thank you, because this marks the 7-year anniversary or birthday of the Leo King, which is a 28-degree Gemini with Jupiter conjunct exact. You can look up the birthday. The time is 10 a.m. Irvine, California. When I launched the website, everything came out, even launched a horoscope and a DJ mix that all was launched at that moment with a Leo rising and a moon in Scorpio conjunct Saturn. I think it's with the North Node too. But anyway, so 7 years of the Leo King itself being the brand to push in the astrology, that's the birthday week for it, and it happens to be where we're seeing the North Node, and we're going to see this major eclipse this week. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that has always been a supporter of me, whether it was being the Leo King, or whether it was David Palmer Astrology, or whether it was just me as a young astrologer back, I can't even believe it, even prior to not even last decade, the decade prior, when I was on Soul Garden. And I still always promote Soul Garden very much, soulgarden.tv, and Christopher Witecki, which I think he does it as Serious Joy now, so make sure you check him out. So this is a very emotional time, and this is definitely one of the most, I would say, pivotal moments of 2020. And this pivotal moment also, I think, is going to have an impact on us for 30 plus years. So I just want to prepare everybody that this is a horoscope that's going to be going, I think, a lot more deeper than, you might even be able to sometimes maybe comprehend. I'm going to be honest with you. There's so much in the astrology that I'm going to have to do a lot more chart stuff so you can see it. So we're not going to spend as much time about me talking about it. First thing is, of course, I'm sure you all know there's a major solar eclipse that is happening this weekend. and it's going to be happening on the 21st of June, which of course is the solstice. Now, it's ironic because we are going to hit the solstice, and then right after we hit it, when the sun goes to 0 degrees of Cancer, it's just literally almost half a day after that, bang, solar eclipse. But before we get to that solar eclipse, which we're going to talk extensively about, we need to talk about the sun finishing in Gemini with its conjunction to the North Node. This is a big deal, of course, because the nodes serve to the pleasure of the sun and the moon. And we're going to see both the sun and the moon meet up on this North Node in Gemini. Even though this is a solar eclipse in Cancer, and we are going to be moving this week from Gemini into Cancer, it's important for us to remember it's Gemini, dealing with our local environment, our personal space. Now, that also is Cancer, but when it comes to Gemini, it's more of, the things that you see with your mind, the things that you think about, the environment in which you're in. And I think that that's so important to remember that we have a south node in Sag. So this is going to be the first time that the sun is going to oppose the south node in Sagittarius. Last time we would have seen that was in 2003. So, and a little bit at the very beginning, it would have been 2003. So I just want to remind people that, there's a lot of 2003 elements in this moment, but there's even more to say that this is an important time for you to realize to not get so lost into the world, but your own smaller world. Because you got to look at it like, whether I use sometimes the analogy of Russian dolls, right? Like, just focus on the nucleus right now. Or if we were to take Gaia or take Earth, right? The core nucleus, like that middle part of the Earth, right? Like, I'm sure that Earth is worried about us being the fleas on top of it all the time, but I'm sure there's moments where Earth also just goes to that core, right? The magma, and focuses on, well, I got to keep the whole thing surviving here. Let's just keep this going. And that's what Gemini is. It's the excitement of the smaller part of your individual life. It's when we go to Sagittarius where we finally get this great idea to go farther and beyond and into the future, and we get into much more that understanding of where in the world could we go. And this is where the South Node is. You're going to get lost there. You're going to get lost trying to compare and contrast. What is this country doing? What is that country doing? What is this belief system? What is that belief system? This is my belief, and this is where Gemini has to go, let me just look at how this all affects me into my own life. Let me take this side of the fence and that side of the fence, and let me put them together and let me come up with my own mental conclusion to things. Because the facts are never really known, right? There's that whole pondering, or I would say not even questioning, because Gemini is about questioning things to get a factual answer. Whereas when we're in Sagittarius, it's much more of the belief or the pondering or the quest for trying to understand. And understanding can take decades, lifetimes. It's that moment where we want to go farther and see beyond, but also not have any factual data, right? I always use the analogy, if you want to know, if you ask a question like, what does Chinese food taste like in China? I'm pretty sure it'll probably be different than Chinese food in America. But unless you go there and you taste it for yourself, you're the one who can make that compare and contrast. And that's what Gemini is the understanding of the taste of it. It is Sag that goes, well, I guess I'm going to have to go there with still an unknowing and take the trip to there and make the journey to there. And I think that this is where, if we get lost into every part of our lives right now, trying to always go, why is this happening to me and I don't have any facts? Let me just keep trying to understand, and no facts keep coming, and there's no data keep coming, and you can't even get to China to eat the Chinese food. I'm using that as an analogy, right? Like, why are you even doing it? Why are you even putting all your energy into it? Remember that Jupiter's ruled by Sagittarius, and Jupiter's in retrograde in its worst sign for it to be, Capricorn, and it's conjuncting with Pluto again. And now that we are coming into this week, it's Gemini that is going to be activated at its peak, because the sun is going to cross, and the moon, over this North Node in Gemini. So this is activating these nodes fully. We've already seen a lunar eclipse that was 2 weeks prior to this, which activated it, and it was an exact square to Mars. And the reason why I'm bringing up Mars right now is because we are going to be in retrograde city. And y'all need to be prepared for this, because this is not something that you see a lot. Not only are we in a triple eclipse cycle, so we just had a lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago, we're going to come into a major solar eclipse on top of the North Node, and then we have another lunar that's 2 weeks from now. That's going to be 2 weeks from Sunday, actually, the 21st. So you need to realize that, like, that is an extensive time. It's a lot longer than 1 month. It's a 6-week process of eclipse cycle. And in the middle of it, so many planets retrograde. We just had Mercury come retrograde on the 17th. So actually, as I'm doing this right now, Mercury just went retrograde in Cancer. We're moving the sun and the moon into a big solar eclipse into Cancer. This is an area for 18 months, from November of 2018 until May 5th of 2020, that we had the North Node here. And we were all seeking to try and find comfort in our life and safety, and more importantly, emotion, and a way to better take care of ourselves. But with all the Capricorn, with the South Node, and with Saturn that's been there, and that was Pluto that was there through that whole transit, and Jupiter, there was major blocks to our emotional world. And so many ways, this eclipse cycle is trying to find, for real this time, where the emotions are at. But with Mars, you got to remember, now that Mercury's retrograde and Mercury's looking in Cancer, trying to figure out a lot of emotions and even locations of home, where should I live, right? People are wanting to move more than ever, especially from the effects of what we've seen in the last 4 months of the world. People are pondering, am I in the right place? They're looking at their local space. They're comparing and contrasting into the world. Everybody's in this, well, what do I do next? Where's the best place to be? But I think that we need to remember that there's a lot of retrogrades. Not only do you have Mercury, you have Jupiter retrograde, you have Pluto retrograde, you have Saturn retrograde. We have Venus retrograde. Very rare, every 18 months, right? We see Venus retrograde. And now we're going to add Neptune. That's going to go stationary retrograde on Monday, the 22nd. The only 2 planets that will be not retrograde are going to be Mars and Uranus. Not only are this week they making a semi-square, which is a 45-degree angle, which is not an easy transit. It's not the worst, though, and it can help in many ways, but it also is a very changing directions in your life out of nowhere. When you thought things were going good, and it kind of still moves you into a better place, but there's unpredictability, and Uranus is very slow. It's only doing about 2 minutes a day. I'm going to show you in the charts, which means, I mean, it's not moving much. It's going very slow. It's already gone from 2 degrees at the beginning of, if we take January 1st, 2020, right? And already made it to 9. It's gone 7 degrees. It's only got 1 more degree left, 10 degrees, and then it will do its retrograde here this summer. But we have Mars, which is the fastest planet right now. Every planet is at its slowest, okay? Super slow. Like super slow. And when you get this many retrogrades, and you only have Mars and Uranus, and they're not in a good angle, and Mars is not happy in Pisces. It just had a lunar eclipse exactly square it in Pisces. It's now making sextiles this week to Jupiter and to Pluto. So, you know, Jupiter and Pluto are wanting massive change, and Mars is like, by what? I have to let go of control? I got to let go of how things go in life? And Mars doesn't want to do that. Mars wants what it wants. And when it's in Pisces, it's already lost. At these last degrees, it gets very lost. And Uranus is throwing a curveball with its semi-square, making Mars even more confused of what's going to work, what's not going to work in my life that's going to make me feel better. And it's almost like we are in a maze that they keep shifting the maze. Or it's like one of those horror movies in many ways where it's like, you know, forgot the name of some of them, but you know, it's like being in one of those where it's like, is this a game? And they all do us random people in this random like room, and we're just like, we got to figure it out. And now the room's turning, and if we don't get out of this room by this time, like what the heck's going to happen? But this is where I've been saying that this Mars energy is intense. So be easy on yourself right now and realize that inside of yourself, you want to go. You want to get out of the feelings that are the best ones in the world, right? Like, or you're wanting to get out of bad feelings to get to the best feelings in the world, to the total escape that you want in your life. But for some reason, Uranus is checking this, being like, yo, we're the only two after this eclipse that are together, and we are, you know, trying to figure out this maze, but it's not, both planets are not happy. Uranus is in its fall position of Taurus, and Mars is in Pisces, where it's ready to come home to Aries, but it is struggling, and it's about to square the nodes. And it's got Jupiter and Pluto that are wanting massive change in a retrograde and wanting to change and figure out deeply. They're big investigators. Pluto's the investigator that's hidden, and Jupiter's the big investigator of trying to be the scholar and understand and learn. So when you get both of these with Mars and Pisces, it's lost, and Mars is getting curveballs by Uranus, an exact semi-square, 45 degrees. Look at 9 degrees. I'll show you in the charts. That this week is a massive inner tidal wave at you. Because all these planets are retrograde, and we have Neptune in the middle of this eclipse, dead, stop, stationary, and then it comes retrograde right after the eclipse. And that just brings us into complete, am I on this? Is this reality real? And I'm sure you've already asked yourself that multiple times. Not only this year, but in the last decade. You're going to be asking it times 1 million during this eclipse. During this week, it already feels so extremely sensitive. It's oversensitive times. It's massive sensitive. The sensitivity is overwhelming. And when you have Mars, which is a very harsh planet and a malefic, and it's struggling to get out of the gunk of the last degrees of Pisces, and that's nothing against Pisces. You just have to understand the esoteric understandings of astrology. That the end of Pisces is a major test of spiritual faith. But when you get Mars there, it's the warrior having to try to fight through that whole spiritual faith thing, which it's not something that you really fight against. It's something that you learn to just go with the flow and trust spirit and trust God with. But there's also the deceptive element of Neptune, which happens to be in the middle of this major eclipse, stopped. And I'll be honest with you all, there's a lot of us feeling disconnected, a lot of us not knowing how the world's going to turn, and there's a lot about Mars aspects, war, and there's a lot that's been going on when it comes to the war, whether it's in the world or the war of what's going on in yourself, of trying to make your way and understand this matrix and be super lost and super emotional and super sensitive, and also questioning every part of your whole existence of your life, questioning the whole entire universe itself, questioning your reality, questioning everybody in your life. Venus, retrograde, never been here in our lives before. And this part of Gemini, as it's retrograding back to 5 degrees its stationary position. Venus also has finally come to be barely seen as the morning star on June 15th. But ironically enough, before this eclipse happens, we're about to see Thursday night into Friday morning, the moon go dark in Gemini, a balsamic phase of the moon, and we're going to have a dark moon that's going to be with Venus retrograde, and that moon is already almost down to nothing, as it's way past the 3/4 square and waning all the way down, but it's going to wane over a Venus retrograde, where we all want to feel good and creative and excited, and the sun's going to be coming on top of the North Node, or Rahu, the dragon's head. And there's this deep need to feel and stimulated, exciting, and to just to fill up the empty space that Neptune has created in its stationary position, that all these other retrograde planets have created. That this is where things go even more bonkers than you realized. That the next decade, the next 2 decades, the next 3 decades are all really being seeded right now at this point. Because this is dealing with the galaxy. This is going to be a major solar eclipse right on the line of the galactic center. You have Mars squaring the galactic center. You have Mars, the fastest and one of the only planets even moving direct and fast. It's not out of shadow, or it's not in shadow, and it's not in Aries yet, but it's building up towards everybody trying to find the courage and strength through the deepest, whether we want to use a term that's been used lately, swamp. There's that whole element of inside of yourself, the inner swamp in yourself, the inner struggle with all these planets to even go anywhere, to try and run away, to try and find some sort of solace, to also get out of situations that subconsciously are holding you back so deeply. And I would say that that's the biggest thing, is the only way that you can make it through this eclipse with feeling somewhat normal is, what is subconsciously not serving you? Where are you completely knocked out of reality by numbing yourself, by staying in situations and places and environments and people and things and alcohol and drugs and all these things that hold you so far back from your truth? Belief systems, and losing yourself into the understanding that you are going to try and live yourself through the lens right now of beliefs that have been embedded into you and are being used by Neptunian forces that you don't know where it's coming from, whether that's the media to even forces that are beyond our seeing eye, that are using beliefs in a way to have you change your own local environment as a factual one, even though it might go against the environment that you want to be living in your life. That there's a major test here for people, as this world is about to go into, my biggest prediction is war. Financially, the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is next week, following this eclipse, the second one. And we have not seen one in a retrograde since in 2007, when we saw Jupiter and Pluto in Sag. It was a fast Jupiter passing Pluto, one time, direct, full speed, and it was like, hi Pluto, nice to see ya. And that opened up all the doors since 2007. You had so many opportunities. I've said this many times to people. But now in Capricorn, we're going to see a Jupiter-Pluto retrograde conjunction while we're in the middle of eclipses and massive retrogrades. And so financial systems and where you are in the world of the monopoly that we are now living in, because if you want to look at the reality, and what's confusing is that the world has been shifted in such a way that when you wake up, you're going to start to realize that some people have been put, and I would say a lot of people have been herded. And this was my number one warning to people at the beginning of 2020 and the years prior, was to be herded like sheep and to follow what everybody's saying and what everybody's doing to herd people into this monopoly game. And I'm just trying to wake people up that they don't have to go into that, but also to really start to find deep inside yourself, like you have to feel comfortable and know that you're in the environment, that you're in the space, not that you have to run to it, but that it's not surrounding you by things that are not in your spiritual alignment, not in your best spiritual interest, energies that are pulling you into even more of the nothingness, losing yourself into places to numb yourself out. Take away the numbing out for a minute and see where you really stand. Take away out so many of the equations right now in your life that are not in your truth, not your excitement, not the things that you really, truly want. That's a Sun and North Node conjunction that we're going to see. This is a solar eclipse in Cancer that's going to be about, are you truly fulfilled, happy? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel safe? Do you feel empowered because you are surrounded by things that want to take you to the ultimate place? Remember, Jupiter, Pluto are in Capricorn, and this is a time where it's important to focus on those two planets, since there's no more South Node there, and you're going to feel the extent of, are you really going into a place that feels like destiny, or do you feel like you're just fulfilling a place of, I'm just trying to get to the next step of life, and I don't know, we'll see where things go. Capricorn isn't like that. It's planning, it's long-term planning, and these are plans that have been in place for beyond decades. These are actually plans that have been in place for 500 years. And actually even beyond that, since the 1280s, when we saw Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn in Capricorn. But that's how long some of these plans have taken to come together. And with Saturn, that's going to be in quincunx to this powerful solar eclipse, it's not easy. Because it's going to force you to realize that in order to be into the true space that you need to be in your life, you need to look at, with Saturn retrograde at 0 Aquarius, are you around the right group? Are you around the right people? There's blocks that show you, like, is this really taking me to where I am going into the weirdest place in my life? Or am I in a place that actually makes sense for who I am? And that person you are is how were you raised? How were you handled by your parents? What is the example that you want to set to the world in a way that makes you feel that you're not getting locked in to the ideals of some sort of society and world, to where there's a lot of things in that world and society's ideas right now that are being swayed by the media on both sides of the aisle of every country, of everything, and everybody's getting lost, and everybody's going into battles within their families, within their communities, within our countries, and within world countries against each other. And this is going to be where the big test from Spirit is going to be at its height. Because as we do move into Cancer, and we do move into all these retrogrades, and with especially that Neptune coming retrograde, with a Venus retrograde and Venus dark moon conjunction, this is where you'll feel hollow. And oh boy, well, you might just do anything to fill yourself up, or make yourself feel better, or believe this will make you feel better. And this is where you're going to need to check yourself before you literally wreck yourself. Because what are you trying to fulfill yourself with? As we are all empty and hollow, we are all in Pinocchio's story trying to become a real human being again in many ways, but forgetting that we're not a puppet, forgetting that we are not needing a fairy godmother, but what we do need is Jiminy Cricket. But in many ways, Jiminy Cricket could sometimes be a little Sagittarian. He thinks he knows everything, but he doesn't. And I think that maybe we don't need either, but our conscience isn't from some belief or ideal, but our conscience is our direct connection beyond the fairy godmother, beyond a little Jiminy Cricket, to Source itself, to God itself, to home, to the home from where we come from. And whether or not you know how to listen to that, and whether or not you're ready to make the sacrifice in your life, because that's really what Neptune is about: sacrifice. Sacrifice to the eternal highest God. Sacrifice to your best place spiritually. And it's not easy, because people get locked into groups. And this is where Saturn in Aquarius creates group identity. And we're all human here. And we also need to remember that our egos are at peak, being that it is the fastest planet and it's about to come into Aries, and it's also at a very tough degree, and it is squaring the nodes. That we are all about to choose a persona. The persona that's either numbed out and lost and not on our spiritual track. And if you look ahead with Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, that's all coming together in the next couple weeks, are you really going to see the long-term effects of that? Is that giving you a destination that will last the next 30 years? Are these the people that you see with yourself in 30 years? Is this the job that you see yourself in 30 years? Do you have that? Or this is what's going to be hard now, because with North Node and Gemini, it's like you need to look at things factually, and you need to look at the long-term road, the future, very intensely right now, and be like, does this factually make sense? Do these people, do these situations, does this environment that I'm in, does this make sense for my long term? Because if you don't right now, the choice will be made, and we are going to see Mars come into Aries for the rest of 2020, even into 2021, do a major retrograde, and be one of the most hardest aspects we've ever seen in our life that's coming up. This summer is, and I'm sure you feel it right now as you watch this video, this is not a normal time. This is the most extreme of solar eclipses, and I'm going to show you not only in the charts, but I'm also going to show you the map on where it's hitting in the world. So let's do that right now. And I just want you to all think about your space here. This might sound weird, but I know I'm in my right space. I've known about being in this space for so long as I just told you, about 7 years of just being the Leo king, not even the many and almost a decade prior to that of doing astrology and learning it and being involved with it and following that path that was ultimate to spirit and not getting locked in groups and people and situations that were always taking me off that path. Even though I gained so much from it, I never left the path. I never left the understanding and knowing. And this is that test. Because now as we come into all this Cancer, Mercury retrograde, there's a lot of hard aspects coming in this Mercury retrograde with Mars. And this is where this maze is about to get really confusing. And this is setting off a trigger in the world, which I know I'm telling you not to pay attention to, but just be prepared. A world that has all the writings on the wall. How to fulfill the financial aspects? War. How to fulfill the next story? War. And that Mars is involved in all of these eclipses in many ways. Mars is involved with the square to the nodes. Mars is coming home at 0 degrees Aries while Saturn retrogrades back into Capricorn, if you don't know. In between another set of eclipses, because that'll be a solar to another lunar. And that's the 0 point of Aries. And you have to remember that that point is also being squared by this solar eclipse. And so when it comes to the world that it's defined as, your own identity, the identity of the world, and when it comes to ideas like war, which is what it rules, not a lot of things are pointing towards kumbaya. Of course, we all have to learn to be that kumbaya, but at the same time, we have to learn to make sure that we are at a place that we are in our destinies, that we are not lost right now in numbed out worlds, that we know and we see our future and we understand what's coming, and that we are not taken blindsided, because instead we're just looking at the hope and the optimism without any of the facts, and to realize that this is not just a year. This is a moment in time. This is the ultimate test for humanity and yourself individually especially, on whether or not you know how to truly align in the best place that you can, and to make sure that it's the best for your long term. And you're not basing that off of, well, it looks better because of what Sag energy shows, like what I see on the news, and they're saying that this state does this, or they see that. You have to know from an internal knowing in your own space. Sometimes you need to look at, it's the most basic thing, like county lines, city lines. Am I in the right part of the city? Am I in the right county in my state? Or am I in the right area and province of my country? Am I in a country that's aligned with the right countries? But that's already been closed pretty much here. So this is where the pressure is getting more intense with Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter with no south node. So it's not an illusion, the pressure. And the pressure of the zodiac is now getting extreme more than ever. And the echoes that started in January with Saturn and Pluto, with the eclipses then, are about to echo into a more extreme moment here than I think we all might be, even myself, prepared for the next 6 months. And it's this week that triggers it all. With the most retrogrades that you've seen, and probably, I haven't done it, but if I know the math, the last time Saturn and Pluto met. So, which is in the 80s. Has a lot more with Mars stuff, but the goddess is still retrograde, and she is definitely trying to figure out a lot. But unfortunately, she's not on yet. And Neptune is going to create people lost or truly awake, and a split in the collective that we already saw. And I already predicted, if you watch my prediction videos for a long time, I said that it would be the hardest horoscope I did in my life. And that was in December of 2019. You can see the video where I put my past predictions here on my YouTube. But I'm just letting you know that I don't have a hard time doing this horoscope anymore, because people who are not on the other, whatever side of the collective right now that's working, people don't watch this stuff, that don't believe in it, that have lost themselves into the media, have lost themselves into believing the stories. And that's the thing is, don't just go create stories. Don't add to stories. Define stories of truth from within your truth, things that make sense. And if you're afraid to take the courage to your spiritual truth and just let something pass you by, that's all on you. Let's go look at the charts. This will be kind of funny, me transferring over, so give me a sec. All right, here we go. Changing things up here. Making sure that we're all good. Whoa, a little bit too much light there. Looks like we have people watching. Hey, I'm in the chat. Hey. And then I'm also in the high vibe chat, which I'm loading now. Let's do a little bit better. That other camera's all blown out. Sign in. So I'll be in both chats. We're gonna go over these charts. Let me get rid of that. There we go. All right. Here we go. All right. So we got a lot to cover today, and I'm gonna do it as quick as I can, of course. I appreciate you all for being here and for listening to me at the beginning of this. I'm in the high vibe chat mainly because that's the tribe. You guys are all tribe on YouTube too, but all right, here we go. Let's have some fun. So, June 18th, which is now today, I'm doing this horoscope at 5:33 a.m. And before we even go into this horoscope, let me just tell you a little bit about my journey over the last week. I know a lot of people want to know. I've been blasted by the astrology. I don't even want to try and compare, but it's been insanely nuts. Out of a 1 out of 10, I'd say it's like an 8 to a 9. Maybe even a 10, because it is Saturn opposing my sun, and I am a Leo sun, and I am first 0 degrees, and Saturn is the only planet that can be in dignity to actually destroy a Leo, right? Like, Leos have no problems except for maybe Mars and Scorpio stuff, but I was born with Mars and Scorpio, so I got lucky. Or Moon and Taurus, which is only exalted, right? So it's only Saturn in Aquarius that can actually try and block a Leo, and I've had more blocks in my personal life, and I went through so much Saturn stuff recently in my life that I got knocked out. I needed sleep, I needed rest, I've needed it, and so I slept most of today until I even, I think it was around like 6 p.m., I tried to Postmate something, and the guy didn't bring me anything, and I got so upset at it. I was in my shop on my jet skis waiting that I just laid on the floor, and I passed out, and Craig and Ann couldn't find me until like 9 o'clock at night, and they woke me up, and I was passed out next to my jet skis. So that's why I'm doing this so late, is I set this all up on myself. I had to eat, I had to get all the astrology together, and I literally slept all day. So I'm like kind of in a weird space where I'm living like I woke up at 9 p.m. as 9 a.m. and this is like 5 p.m. to me right now, which is really messed up and really weird. But I want to remind people that we are in the Mayan calendar, we are in the White Wizard, which is a year that ends on July 26th, if I remember right, of this year. And that is timelessness. And the more to the end that we get of this, and if we look at the astrology with Neptune, right? So here's Neptune at 20 degrees and 57 minutes. Let's look at Neptune real quick. Neptune, it's only going 9 seconds a day. That's nothing, okay? Remember that minutes equal 60 minutes to get to 1 degree. And remember that in a chart, there's 360 degrees, right? So the moon, you'll typically see, right? So if you look at the moon is always going about 12 minutes a day. Okay? Or sorry, 12 degrees a day. 12 degrees a day. So there's 24 hours in a day. It means every 2 hours the degree moves an hour. Or I mean, sorry, the moon moves a degree every 2 hours. Sometimes it can be a little less. So I'm trying to teach people astrology while doing this at the same time. So you have to remember that 9 seconds? You have to get 60 seconds just to get 1 minute, right? Then you have to get 60 seconds just to get to 1 degree. Well, when you're at 9 seconds, and Neptune is one of the biggest planets, right? It's just in our view. And it stopped. I think it's slow. They should put extreme. Slow. Station. So it's stationing. And so here's Mars that's been not happy, been in the middle of the lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago, and it's hitting Pluto and it's hitting Jupiter. So, I mean, it wants to get a lot. It wants a lot. It wants to expand. It wants change. But it has to make choices. It has to make choices on what feels right spiritually and what doesn't. And those are big questions. Those are major questions right now. They're not simple either. They're very difficult in many ways because of the fact that we are in the sun here at 28 degrees Thursday, and the moon going to go balsamic in Taurus, and then it's going to hit Venus. I have a chart that's going to see this. We've never seen Venus here because remember Venus at 6 degrees. Remember, it went direct at 7 degrees in 2012 during the last one, and it was with the south node, not the north node. And it was actually South Node Venus conjunction. Which, if you don't know, the South Node and Venus love each other. The North Node and Venus do not like each other. Rahu likes to use Venus for his own gain. He also likes to use the Sun for his ego. So you want to talk about egos right now in life? Oh, Sun and North Node. Solar eclipse on the North Node. It's empowering, but with a lot of questions and a lot of emotions. Here's Mercury that just went retrograde. We got 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde. And it's going to stay in Cancer the whole time. So with this moon leaving Taurus where it's exalted and coming into Gemini on Thursday to go dark, a dark moon, it's going to be with Venus in the morning when they rise for just a second. And Venus will still be not dull or still not bright enough to be its true brightness because she needs the sun to be a little bit farther away. But she is starting to reappear. So there's a reappearing happening with deep questions of your relationships, what feels good in those spaces and what does not, your values, what you're going to do with your life. You're not going to see this retrograde again for 8 years. And this is extreme because it was ironic that 8 years ago, during the Venus retrograde, it was a solar eclipse that was in Gemini with the South Node. And it was at 0 degree of Gemini. And it was very weird because it was a dark moon with the sun and the moon in Taurus on the 19th when Facebook went public. I've been predicting that there's going to be some crazy stuff about Facebook. And then they switched into Gemini together on the 20th. And that was a total eclipse that was actually seen from in America. This one is going to be seen in the in the southern hemisphere, and it's going to be seen in the east. So there's a flip, and your life has flipped from 8 years ago. So extreme, but so many similarities too. Very twin-like, but the opposite twin. It's almost like you're living your twin life right now that you were living 8 years ago. And there's going to be a lot of trying to start to really feel that, I would say, this Thursday. Like, what the heck is going on? This dark moon also as well is like trying to find emotion, as it is going to be in Gemini, which is Mercury's home, with Venus retrograde, with the sun getting towards the North Node, with the North Node being in Gemini, and what? Mercury's in Cancer. So it's emotionally trying to find, and the moon is in Gemini's sign, right? They would rather be switched. They are going to make a sextile. There's a mutual reception, though. Which, if you don't understand mutual receptions, the moon is in Gemini's house, and Mercury is in Gemini's house. But that mutual reception actually happened, and then they weren't really that mutual. But there's going to be a semi-sextile, and that is a mutual reception of a semi-sextile, where Mercury would rather be in Gemini and the moon would rather be in Cancer. So there's something off, mentally and emotionally for everybody. And add to boot everything I just said about Neptune being stopped, which makes things eerie. And the media is fueled up for Decepticon. This is Oz stuff. So let me move the chart here, because what I want to show you is what we're going to see Friday at 1:40 a.m. Pacific. Okay, so that would be like what? 4:40 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And what do we see? We see this Moon-Venus conjunction. This will be the last Moon-Venus retrograde conjunction in Gemini for 8 years. And it's while the Sun and North Node are coming together. There's a major choice that's going on, and it's a dark moon. They say to chill on a dark moon, but there's also like, don't chill too much, in a sense of like, what? There's a lot of weird questions here about what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and the Sun and Rahu are like, I gotta know, I gotta figure it out logically in my environment. I need to see it. Sag, remember, with the South Node, it doesn't need to see it. It'll believe it, or it doesn't even see it. It sees it in a vision. It doesn't see it in a truth. And there really is only truth in Sag at the end of the journey. There's something that says, when you actually see it with your eyes, and you can feel it and taste it and smell it with the energies of Taurus and Gemini, that it's really felt true. It's more of the idea that becomes more of a belief, or a knowing. But we don't have any knowing right now. And anybody who thinks they know, we don't know the outcomes right now at all. We could know some sort of the factual energies, but we don't know how this story is going to play out at all in our lives and in the world. And long travel is definitely not advised during this time. With Jupiter ruling Sag, and it's with Pluto. With Saturn in retrograde in Aquarius world, and you've got travel, and you've got a South Node, not advised. Because you might get stuck in a place for a long time. I think that this solar eclipse, which I'll show you, is going to activate a new world that we already knew was the new world, but it will never be the same again. And I'm going to make a prediction that some people might not like to hear. I believe that there's going to be events that are going to happen after this eclipse that are going to make it hard to go to places that we want to go for a long time. We're going to see with this Venus moon, Mars with Pluto. They like each other. So there's definitely going to be something coming into Thursday night, into Friday morning. Like, I'm doing this. I'm making a change. I'm taking a risk. I'm going with my gut. I need to feel this. I need to see this. It's dark to me. I need to see the light of it. And the Mercury retrograde might feel like it's crazy because it's hollow emotionally. And it's a mind living in the emotions. It's a mind overthinking things in the emotional world. Or it's just trying to find some sort of deep buried treasure with Jupiter Pluto, right? With Mars that needs to be found. But it's like it almost feels like a who knows journey. And it makes it very weird with Mars here at 24 because that makes an exact semi-square here to Uranus. So it's got curveballs with it. It's got a lot of unknowing, but you can almost in many ways kind of like divert around because they are in at least air and water and earth, that they get along and they're in the same modalities that they like, or modalities that are interested in each other. But there's a 45-degree angle, there's a kink in the hose here, and Uranus is definitely, with Mars, the only two planets that are at any sort of speed. If you look at Uranus right now, you've got Uranus at least doing 2 minutes a day. Okay? Everything else is not. That's retro, remember, Jupiter. Look at Mars, 37 minutes a day. The only, of course, but you can't consider the sun and the moon. They're not planets. They never travel at other speeds unless, of course, they travel a little bit different in the summer than they do in the winter if you're in the northern hemisphere, but not by much. That's getting a little too scientific. But look at 7 seconds only. Pluto is at 1 minute retrograde a day. So Uranus is faster than Pluto retrograde. Uranus is faster than Neptune. And look at Venus retrograde, 14 seconds a day, minutes a day. It's going nothing. It's about to stop. It's coming into its station very soon here, which we're going to see that station after this eclipse. So when it comes to the world right now, it's going into complete slowdown. It's going into complete, like I said, it feels like a tidal wave coming at you of karma, of trying to understand what this whole entire, and we can go back if we want to use Neptune when it went direct in November of 2019, right? All the weird stuff and spirituality and deception and everything, and all this uncovering of your subconscious, and what were you doing in November, and what were the events that brought you into this from November? And December with the eclipse that was in Capricorn on December 25th. It's getting weird. And it's getting weirder than you've ever probably imagined. Now there's bliss that can be found through all this because of the fact that we are seeing that Moon, Venus, that love each other. And they are rising in the morning of Friday morning. But remember, they're in the same sign as Rahu, which Rahu doesn't like the benefics. Rahu has a mission to almost get rid of the benefic deities because they chopped his head off because he was a demon. And Ketu is the tail of that demon. And it's in Sag. That's why the benefics, like the South Node, because they don't have to deal with the consciousness and the awakeness of the dragon who eats and devours and knows the mission in many ways, where South Node is the illusion because it doesn't have a head. So the tail of this dragon is, ironically, where the galactic center comes from, this direction up. And in many ways, people can really start to get lost in what galaxy are you in. This kind of goes into multiple timelines. This goes into, I think, on a deeper question, what paradigm did you slip into is a question. Did you slide into a different reality? Did we all slide into a different paradigm? Did we all slide into a different time space? You know, I think the Mayans are laughing at us right now, as they were very correct 8 years ago in 2012. 8 years ago was one of the major, I would say, events of our lives, because it was the Venus retrograde and the South Node, and it was the change of many things in the world in 2012, of your awakeness, of your consciousness, and also the world's beginning of its change. 8 years during that retrograde. That's when we saw Facebook go public. It's when we saw a change in all things in our life. We saw the media change. We saw nobody was watching television as much, starting to go onto YouTube. We saw it's all communication, Gemini, right? But in many ways, was it a distraction while we were all being thrown into a different time paradigm, a different dimension shift? And I think what you're experiencing now is the awakening of that you have been thrown into a different dimension. And maybe you need to watch Sliders. It's an old show from the 90s. Or maybe you need to watch the OA. Or maybe you need to watch something to understand this comprehension of this so extreme. But no matter what, you are still within your soul's alignment of yourself, no matter which dimension you're in. But you're experiencing a part of yourself that maybe for some people out there, depending on your astrology and depending on how you're handling this energy right now, either doesn't know how to understand this and doesn't comprehend that switch and is still locked in trying to be in the other dimension when you're in another one. We are in weird waters. This is not normal, and the only security that we have in life, and I know this might sound crazy, is Capricorn. The reason why I say that is because this is where the universe is doing its biggest construction work, and it is securing some sort of foundation by actually knowing that we are on our destiny and on the ship towards the right direction. And these are the only positive transits we're seeing is Mars with Jupiter, Mars with Pluto before this eclipse. And it's almost like you need to be on the waters of your soul and make sure that you're on the risk or the destiny, that you have an understanding that you are, even maybe if you are in a weird dimension, you're still in the right energy of the dimensional weirdness you are. Because the more weird that you feel, it's going to be because of the fact that, and even the delusional aspect of feeling too good, it's almost bipolar, right? So there's manic people out there thinking, I'm in the best place in the world. And it's like, okay, come down off something. And then there's people really low right now and extremely depressed. And it's like, okay, we need to talk about it. And mental health right now, I keep saying, is the most extreme part of this, of comprehension of this time, comprehension of this moment, comprehension of the dimensional shifts, comprehension of that you need to pay attention a little bit more into your local environment, your local space, and make sure with this Venus retrograde, with all these planets coming retrograde, that already most of them are, but that you are really in the environment that makes you stimulated and it makes sense for your long term. Because what is this Sun in North Node doing? It is going to quincunx over to Saturn. And so Saturn on its way in its home, and look at these rulers, right? Saturn is in its home sign of Aquarius, +7. The moon, while I'm doing this chart, of course, gets a little bit of love because it's with Venus. And Mercury even gets a little love because, well, even though it's retrograde, it's in Cancer right now, and the moon happens to be with Venus. It's kind of how you start rating systems. But look at Jupiter. You think world travel's good? So -9. You think, look at Venus, -5. There's a lot of confusion in relationships. So Saturn, because these two change every day and every second depending on the chart. But Saturn keeps always a high score right now. And so the world you live in is the world that you choose to live in factually and for your future and the person you really are, and the deepest question that you have to have in your life with these transits right now, because this is all Gemini going into Cancer and going into a new season, right? We're at a solstice, is, am I logically and emotionally truly on the best future possible? Is what I do, who I'm around, and what I am doing going to last the long haul of the next 30 plus years of Saturn Pluto that just laid upon us a world that is not going to even feel somewhat even close to what we used to live ever again? Ever again. For real. Like, never again. It's over. That Jupiter-Pluto ended it. That Saturn-Pluto ended it. And that was all from January to March. Goodbye. Actually, if you add the Jupiter-Pluto, April. There were still some remnants of it. But ever since April 24th, even no matter how much you want to be in the delusion of my place is opened up and this is opened up, it doesn't feel the same. Doesn't matter what the outside physical world looks like. What's going on in here that's still going, this doesn't feel normal. I just want things to go back to normal. I want things to look normal again. Oh, well, welcome to this new world. Saturn in Aquarius already is, this feels alien. How do I control this alien energy and feel normal? Saturn. You think Saturn likes to be in Aquarius. It does, but it also doesn't, right? Because the truth is we found Uranus, and Uranus is the father of Saturn. So Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and Saturn is the son coming into the father's home. Not his own house, where he does weird things with his children. And one of his children, Zeus, is the one who reels him back from control of the universe after he basically, I already went into this, besieged his father and said, fuck you, and I'm going to take over and I'm going to talk shit on you, and they banished Uranus. So Uranus is in Taurus, and it's about to go to the last decan here in the next couple of weeks, right? Well, and it's going to be a little bit. It's going to be later in July, but it's definitely not an easy game right now, because this is a dark moon up until this eclipse. So we go to Saturday. We have the solstice coming, but I put it right before the solstice. 29 degrees, 59 minutes. That's crossing over that node, that knot, with the moon that's right behind it. So the midpoint here is going to be the node in many ways, even though it's not truly the midpoint, but we will see a midpoint node here when the moon gets closer. Right before the eclipse, Mercury retrograde 14, Venus now at 5. Never seen Venus here at 5. Retrograde. And when you start looking at the chart, there's Mars now with Jupiter. So Saturday before this eclipse happens, and as we step into the solstice, there is a moment here of like, am I really opening up doors in my life, or am I not? And those doors you have to open to are, am I really on the right ship? Is this the journey that I want to go in my life that makes sense for my environment, that makes sense for me? And this Venus retrograde is asking that very big, as she's like, I'm about to come bright. I'm about to be the morning star, and I'm about to shine my greatest energies and my partnerships and my values and if I'm not in the right space, if I'm not in the right environment, if I'm not around the right people I can communicate with and understand the same energies, then I am not going to do well. And go back to 2012. What did you rethink about your relationships and your self-worth? I can tell you that it was tough for me. It was tough. It was tough having to leave a relationship. It was tough having to step out and be a fucking daily video astrology horoscope guy every day. But it was the right choice. And even though my environment didn't look good, I knew the environment which did, and I went and created that life. And that's what a Venus retrograde is go create that life even when it doesn't look like it. And don't get too obsessed with the one that doesn't look the way that you want to, or you think it looks really good, because it's almost like it's going to slip beneath your feet in many ways. Venus retrograde is we need to rethink this plantation like that of all the plants that we have here and go, is my garden correct? Is all these things correct? Because there is something to say about this being some sort of, you have to tend your garden, and with it being in Gemini, is this really stimulating to me, or is this stimulating me negatively and making me the negative twin or the positive twin? And with the Sun and Rahu that are conjunct, is your ego creating in opposition some big belief story that everything's all good, everything's just going to be fine, I already know I'm in the right place? If you're not even questioning your reality right now, you're not even questioning reality itself, you're not even questioning what is told stories as facts, you're not even questioning the environment you're in, you're not even questioning just life itself, then I'm here to tell you, that's how you know that you're not paying attention. Because this is where delusion is at its peak with, like I said, Neptune had stopped, and you have fallen for being cheap. And this is your last moment. I've told people, I've warned people, the end of June is it. Mars with a good alignment to all these planets coming, okay? When Mars comes into Aries and stops and goes retrograde in Aries, it's going to square all that stuff. And this is the hardest conjunction point that we have ever seen in our lives. Especially as Saturn is coming back into Capricorn. It's not there yet. It's at 0041, but I'm just trying to tell you all that it's right at the first, I think it's January or July 1st, bang, goes back into Capricorn, and Mars goes into Aries, and it's all going to be hitting that 0 point of Aries, which is where Fukushima happened when Uranus went there. Remember that. Now we're going to have the actual planet of war come there, and everything is striking that position, including the nodes. I can go on for an hour about that. That's what to prepare for. Also, remember, Chiron's here in Aries. Like, your ego is lost. And also holding on to maybe an idea of the world and an idea of self that you have to accept the shit in order to purge the ego right now. But the ego that doesn't want to accept the truth, doesn't want to accept the devastation, I would say, to the reality that is no longer the same, and not willing to question it and look at better ways and new ways to feel better in a new reality, won't heal oneself. And it's hard there because Lilith is with Chiron, right? It's like almost like it's almost like creating egos of I'm not doing well, or this is just not what I want. I don't like this. I don't want to hold my life. I don't like life like this. When is life going to change? When is my life going to change? When is this? It's like, whoa. And if we just erase this for 1 second and show you. Where's Mars heading? Oh, it's got to go through Chiron? Oh, and Mars is going to stop, so it doesn't even meet Uranus. It's just going to semi-square Uranus. That semi-square is ending, but I'm just saying that, There's not a lot ahead for Mars to look forward to, except being in its house, but it's going to retrograde. It hasn't done that since 88. And this is the planet we need to look at, because this is the planet that's the only one going fast. And the sun, of course, is not a planet, but the sun is the fastest, and it's with Rahu in the north. No, this is your biggest choice of your life right now on making your last-ditch changes. Because Mars is with Jupiter. Even though Jupiter's in fall and it's retrograde with Pluto, it's a big major change, and it's a big hard decision, and it's one that Spirit's trying to realign your life before the most major solar eclipse that's going to change the world forever. Literally. And bring us into major Mars aspects, which I don't like to go through them all, But you know what? Sometimes in life I have to. Sometimes in life I have to just like remind people about basic astrology. Sometimes I have to go into ancient astrology. Sometimes I have to go super far back. And you know, let's see here who we'll use. Well, we use Cafe Astrology because at least I like their title here. Mars, the god of war. And I'll keep that on the screen here for a minute. I've been telling people for a minute here, a long time, that all the transits that we're seeing right now of the Civil War, of World War II, of the Revolutionary War, and just the fact, if we use astrology, that everything is hitting Mars, and Mars is the fastest planet, and Mars is squaring the nodes, and Mars is coming home to 0 point, which is where Fukushima happened in 2011. And the solar eclipse is squaring Mars's 0 degree. Mars is the ruler of Aries. In astrology, Mars is the planet of energy, action, and desire. So that's the other part of it. But there's going to be people out there that are going to go create reward for desires. It's also a survival instinct and can be thought of as the leftover animal nature of man. We're already seeing that, but that's not the full extent of it when it's in Pisces. And it's not even in Aries yet. It, of course, is our sexual desires. It rules your romantic attraction. It's your Mars. Your Venus adds the beauty element. But sometimes somebody can be beautiful and you're not attracted to them, you know what I mean, sexually. They're like too beautiful or too sweet looking or not enough edge. And Mars is edgy. There's no contemplation before action. Mars is the push that gets you out of bed in the morning. Why? Because when you wake up in the morning, what does Mars rule the head? It's the first thing, you wake up, bam! So there's a bam coming into your life, and there's a bam of identity coming to our world. Remember that the glyph of Mars is widely used as the symbol of the male. And right now, the feminine energy is extremely suppressed. Even though it wants to be extremely used. Remember that this is a Venus retrograde, which of course is the feminine glyph. Sometimes I feel like I'm just talking like kindergarten astrology, but sometimes it's like a reminder. And it is completely stopped. She is completely stopped. She is not fully seen in her full brightness yet. And she's in retrograde. And she's not direct through this eclipse, through this Mars stuff. And what is Mars? Mars is getting power from Jupiter. And when Mars and Jupiter meet, they go after some really gnarly things in life. Or they go create the stories that they want to identify as. This could be magical stories being created, but there's got to be some sort of let go in order for the magic to happen. You got to ditch something or you got to purge something. And you got to make a tough choice that's not going to be the most easy emotional one, but it maybe will gain you that emotional thing. And with the sun and the moon, as the moon is dark and it's waning to become into a solar eclipse, even though this is like a new moon energy that's going to last 4 days, right? I always say these are the moments that change our lives the most. When you see the sun and the moon in the same sign and then move into another sign into the same sign for an extended stay. The sun and the moon are extendedly staying in Gemini and then extendedly staying in Cancer for a total solar eclipse on top of the North Node. This is not a joke. This shit changed your life. Last time we even got anything close to this, and that was with the South Node, was May 20th of 2012. This is the Palladian eclipse, but it's really the Palladian Venus retrograde now. And she's up with the Pleiades, but she's kind of stopping here and trying to find the light in the middle of a dark, crazy, wild, weird reality maze. And Neptune is not having a good time with this. Because Neptune is at the 20th degree, and this gets way more insane. I do have something I want to show you all here before we get to the eclipse. And I know I'm doing a little extended, but I just want to give people, you know, what I can here, because this is my final warning to people. I really don't know how else to put it. Take a look at the chat. Well, we got some people in here. I see some comments that I had to block that are just stupid. And I always give my credit where credit's due. And this is from Santos Bonacci, which always has created controversy from me always talking good things about him. Of course, I've had to say some negative things just because he kind of created a fiasco for me in 2016, but it was no big deal. I mean, it was life, and I move on, but I think he is a great astrologer, and there's a lot of wisdom from Santos that people should listen to him more. So I'm going to take you through Neptune first. So we're going to move into Pisces. Let me actually well, you know what? Give me a second here. Let me yep. Thank you. All right. Oh, froze the program. Froze the program. Oh. Wow. It's freezing the program. Oh, it's breaking it up. Wow. Well, good thing I have this thing saved on my Dropbox. Oh, you won't let me just like... Oh yeah, you will. Ah, it's downloading. Here we go. It can't handle me. Meh. You never know. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to move this thing, and we want to move it like this. I want to move it like this. I want to move it to where we get to able to see Pisces better, and then all right. I think if I just revert. Oh no. How do I accept it? That's what I want to do. Original. Okay. Done. Alright. Such a big file. Okay. So
we get to Pisces here, which, feet, right there. Okay, Jupiter's a ruler, right? The original ruler. When you get to 20 degrees here, see, Neptune was at 18 degrees, and then it went finally to 20. We entered into Mars territory. Now, these are looking at very individualized decans, okay? And there's layers of decans. And when you get to this, where it was through all of 2019, it was stuck in Mercuryville, and in 2018, it was stuck in Mercuryville. Double Mercury. Now we're in Mars Mercury, and we're seeing tons of Mars Mercury squares coming up. And we're at 20 degrees, which can be excessive eating, which is almost like an escape. But the main thing is Mars here is from 19 to 27. And when you get to 21 degrees, which is next year, you get to Mars, which is the buildup of the Civil War in the 1850s. Okay? This is why in 1856, when Neptune went to 19 and then it's stationed and retrograde at 20, was the year they call the invisible divide. And it's a masculine energy at 21 and even 20 on the line right there, feminine, masculine. And it's definitely goes into Scorpio here, from Libra to Scorpio. So it's finishing this kind of Libra energy. There's this trying to understand and define Mars, Mercury, a world with Neptune there. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's not easy. But now, if I were to take you to Cancer, where the solar eclipse is going to happen, or even Gemini, the end of this road here at 29. So we'll go to Gemini at 29, where the North Node is. It's in Saturn, Mars. Saturn, Mars are two malefics. Depression. Remember that Mercury, right, is not truly exalted. It's just dignified, or at detriment, or at fall. And at these last degrees, and if you even see where the solar eclipse is going to happen in Cancer, this is the sign of Cancer, right? The chest, here's the arms, the legs, right? Here's the moon's ruler, Cancer. Mars. Dealing with treacherous territory right here. This is not easy shit. Drowning, eyesight, depression. This is where the Sun and Rahu are meeting. This is where the solar eclipse is going to happen. This is tough. Not easy stuff. Mercury's a lot lighter where Venus is at the beginning zones. Right? But the whole journey of Mercury is Mercury starts to understand the journey much more of life, to where it becomes reality, and has to really identify something at the end that is of reality. And it can't have these curiosity and look around and all this looks and feels fun, and then it starts to get weird as it gets halfway through. So Venus went retrograde at 21 degrees in a Mars-Venus thing, trying to define what we want in our lives, and now it's in just question world. It's leaving 6 with Jupiter, Mercury, like kind of not knowing the higher and the lower mind of things at all. And this has to do with our speech, and this has to do with our skin, and it's Venus, but it's a masculine solar eclipse in Cancer. It's not an easy one because it squares the 0 point of Aries, which you will see, which is the ruler of Mars, which is Jupiter. The sun is exalted. That's why it's happy here. So the sun is not happy at the end of Gemini, and is not happy in Cancer with Mars. And that's a square point from there to here, where Mars is at. Now, if we look at Mars at the last degrees, it gets to barren straits, because when anything in Pisces at the end, it's barren straits. It's drowning, depression, low blood pressure, depression, because it's so suppressed before it comes into the spring. It's the end of winter for the sun. So when you get planets here at the very end, especially even Neptune in its home, it's very depressing. And then there's a civil war when it goes into Jupiter about people's beliefs. And right now, with Mars being at 24, it's in Mars world, And so it's like, you better define things, because when it gets to 27 by the end of this week, I'll show you, it goes into Saturn, and we're all going to be living in our new reality. And that is going to come to a Jupiter square point of where the eclipse is going to be. So, and if we actually look at where Jupiter, Pluto are at 24, let me just take a second here. We are in a Saturn with Jupiter, Pluto, dealing with government structures, and you're in a Saturn decan anyway, and it's all Saturn, and Mars. And so Jupiter has retrograded out of the Mars, and entered into the Saturn world, which makes it at some of its worst places. The actual worst position for Jupiter is technically at 15 degrees. But this is not Jupiter's house. This is Saturn's house. And this is how the sun deals with Capricorn. The sun, at the very end of Capricorn, comes into this Mars, and then goes into its very opposite energies of questioning what things look like, and because it's the opposite of the home of Leo, which, of course, when you go into Aquarius, wherever that is, I mean, it's like, this is my old Dropbox. The heart here, Leo, right? Jupiter, Saturn, the first degree, and then the opposition actually is right here, Jupiter, Saturn. So there it is for Aquarius. Oh, yeah, sorry, that's it. I was looking at Sag. There's Jupiter. So the south node is in Mars. Here it is right here. Jupiter 22 to 25, but Jupiter's at 26, so it's a 25 Saturn, and Pluto is in Mars world. So they are definitely in Mars Saturn. There's a lot of Mars Saturn everywhere you go. Mars Saturn, the two malefics. It's a malefic time. It's a malefic time. Wow, it won't even load my chart program now because I tried to load that. I'm going to have to open up a new notebook here. Santos crashed the computer. I like it. Let's get to that eclipse. So, the eclipse is happening on Saturday. For most people, Sunday. For me on the West Coast here at 11:41 p.m. This is the exact eclipse chart. And this eclipse is happening at 0 of Cancer, right on the line with the North Node here. And with the Mercury retrograde. So now the moon's happy here, but the moon's also off Rahu, even though she's, on it, but she's in her home. So we better have made choices that put us in the right home or not. There's that element. And Neptune is stationing, because if you look at Neptune, it will be very slow, 4 seconds in one day. That's stopping. Get a retrograde little over 24 hours after that, Monday night. And when you look around, it's just Uranus and Mars moving on. And there's Mars now. That's going to be at 25, finishing with Jupiter. So, this is about the choices you're making spiritually, of your spiritual identity, and if it's right on the right spiritual journey. And Pluto is there to remind you the truth of that. But the hard part about this eclipse is its exact quincunx to Saturn. So the moon does not like Saturn, and neither does the sun. That is the enemy of the sun and the moon. And there's an enemy attached to this, and it's the weird understanding of the world and feeling comfortable in a weird new world, that it will never look the same again. And it's being triggered because if you look at Jupiter, Pluto are so close. They're within a degree. They're not even... They're basically conjunct. Don't let that 25 degrees fool you there. It's 7 seconds away from going to 24 degrees. They are conjuncting in retrograde. We've never experienced this in Capricorn in our lives. And it's exactly opposed to the South Node. And so this is where people's visions or beliefs get emotionally wrecked when they were just trying to hope for something to go some way instead of looking at all the facts. And the hard facts, like I showed you, the end of Gemini is very Saturnian and very Mars-like. You better, it feels like doing the malefic thing. That's why they call Mercury, a neutral planet. Mercury can become benefic or it can become a malefic because it has to look at the truth. It has to talk to all the planets and be the communicator and it's the only one that does communicate. It's Hermes. And we're seeing on this eclipse as well as Uranus and Mars are the fastest planets. They're technically within 45 degrees because, you get 40 degrees from 9 Taurus to 0 of Aries, and then you add 5 more, right? And you have 45. But we're seeing Mars it's technically about 44. But it's coming off a semi-square, but it's still there, semi-squaring. And those are the only 2 planets that have any activation going on, besides, of course, the Sun and the Moon, which are an extreme moment. Now, what I'm about to show you is... Let me stop mirroring. What I'm about to show you, using Astro Gold... Is it still on here? Yeah. Here's the map of the world and what's going to be going on this eclipse. Everybody still with me? Now remember, this is the north up here. This is the south down here, okay? Southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere. North node, northern hemisphere. South node, southern hemisphere. But let me just show you where we're going to see on the Earth where this eclipse is going to be seen and hit the hardest, and it's India. And it's on the border of India and China. Now, I'm not lying. I was showing this to Ann and to Craig, and I was like, why don't we just take a look at what's going on with India and China right now? Because this eclipse is hitting and will be there. And this is what I found. So, oh my gosh, computer, come on. All right, here we go. Okay. I'm using like 3 computers, by the way. India, China, okay. And let's go to news. And here you go. Don't worry, I got you all. I'm just getting myself... Oh, gee, Merry Christmas. I'm getting you all set up. There we go. Let me blow it up. So, India and China face off. Updates. Leaders call for boycott of Chinese goods. Why controversial wisdom giving China the military edge over India. Let's look at the news. And there was a story that I laughed at after I told Craig and I told Ann about this, and I laughed at it, and it was from MSNBC, and I'm not saying it because everybody thinks that I'm just some like super right person or something like that. I'm just laughing because the news was trying to downplay it so extremely. They might have even just taken it off. You know what? It was called, I think, like World War. Huh. Guess they don't want to show it anymore. India news. Anyway, border dispute with China may push India closer to some of Beijing's top rivals. Right? This is conflict coming. And this is conflict that's already going on, and it has not reached its peak. And I was laughing because the MSNBC article was trying to downplay it. Like, this isn't going to be anything. Don't even pay attention to it. It's just going to go away. But if you start following, spur companies to rework supply packs. There's a lot going on. But there's something to say how Indians stack up in terms of military capability. Look at these. These are the print, Monday's deadly Gowan Valley clash. So where is the Gowan Valley? Yeah. You got images, maps. So, okay. Do we see where that is? Right? So if you see, here's New Delhi. And then right here is the Gowan River, okay? So this is where the conflict is going on. And then happen. You with me? Where is this solar eclipse exactly striking? North node. Here's New Delhi. North node right there. Sun right there. Sun moon solar eclipse at the top here. And for those that maybe are complaining because they cannot see, I will crop this for you and I will make this a deeper look into what I'm looking at here, and I will put this up there. So right here, sun moon, right? North node, sun moon eclipse, right smack dab in the middle. Whoever thought it would be India that would be at the middle of all this? Well, the astrology says it is. It's back out now, and let's see how it's going to affect China for a second. Because this is going to see the eclipse, okay? Remember, I'm looking at it for me on June 20th, 2020 at 11:41 at 27 seconds p.m. But it's looking very weird for China. Because where is Jupiter, Pluto? Oh, it's going right through China. But where is Saturn? Oh, it's going right by Wuhan City. And it's in the south. Okay. So it's not, of course, seen. And it's a hidden aspect. And there's hidden control powers here. And there's weird agendas. And Saturn is right by Wuhan City. And if you look up the astrology and you look up the solar eclipse activity and the lunar eclipse activity and the Saturn-Pluto of December 25th through January 10th of where the eclipse cycle was last, right through Wuhan City, right through China, and now this one's dealing with Saturn, now this one's dealing with Jupiter, Pluto, and South Node energies, okay? Because, look at that. Like, oh, I'm going to have to move my thing. But, like, okay, like, see Jupiter, Pluto, right? It's right going through there. Now look at Uranus. Going right through North and South Korea. We just had the bombing of the building. Oh, I have to move this. Just had the bombing of the building, right? In North Korea, that was where they negotiated and talked. That just got blown up, and Uranus is throwing a curveball there. Can be going through South Korea, though. Now, let's look at parts of Europe. Hold on one second. I'm going to expand my thing here so y'all can see better. All right. Okay. We see Uranus coming down. Really not hitting anything pretty major here. And I was like, what's going on in Jerusalem? There wasn't really anything even crossing. You see Chiron going through England, or the United Kingdom, and you see Saturn crossing Chiron right on the other side in France. There's going to be some weird stuff going on here. The Chiron-Saturn stuff, which is not really that fun. I'll be honest with you. Almost like having to pick a side and try and keep things normal. And Spain is actually one of the countries that I see one of the most things that are going to happen. You've got Jupiter, you've got Pluto crossing it, and you have Saturn on the top of it, and you have Lilith, and you have Chiron going through it, meeting with Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. It's not going to be a very good area. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on in Spain. So I'm just preparing all the people in Spain. Now the main stuff you're going to see here is in America. What's ironic about America here, and I'm going to switch the map to make it look a little bit easier to see on your eyes. The west coast is empty. Neptune, and its stopping is going right here through New Mexico, Colorado, Mars, which I'm told you, Mars is the strongest of all the planets right now. Mars is going to be going right through Colorado Springs. You know, there's a lot of military stuff that's right here in America. Of course, NORAD. But the main thing is the South Node solar eclipse is going right through Texas, right here through Nebraska, and right through the Dakotas. And if you look at this area, it's going to be a hot zone of life. Also, where we're about to see, I know there's a rally happening in Oklahoma, right? It's in the middle of the eclipse, and it's in the middle of Lilith and Chiron. It's at the midpoint. So there's definitely going to be some weird shit going on there. But I would say that some of the other the weirdest things, and I'm just preparing people, and what's one of the scariest parts of this horoscope, I would say, for America, is Pluto is directly going through New York City. So I'm going to zoom in on this more for everybody to see. We've got Pluto going directly through New York City. We have Jupiter going directly through Long Island, Connecticut. There's the Jupiter-Pluto, and what is that? The financial home. And Jupiter-Pluto every time deals with financial crises. So the financial crisis and the financial shifting is going to be in this next 6 months, and this eclipse is triggering it. And it's going to be an extreme zone, because at the same time, you have Uranus that is meeting with Jupiter and Pluto, and Uranus is going to come through, where? Washington, D.C. Baltimore, Washington, D.C. with Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus. This area right here, I am also predicting, and with Saturn along the coast, right? So you have like the Saturn wall with Jupiter, Pluto, and this is all the stuff that is at nighttime being seen. You're going to be able to see them over the eastern seaboard. And I'm going to be honest with you. I got a prediction of when their hurricane season comes, there's going to be a northern hurricane that hits this whole area up here with the Uranus line, because Uranus is involved with Jupiter and Pluto. This is the hot zone for America right here. New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore is extreme. Even Virginia Beach, Richmond. So people in these areas need to pay attention. There's going to be a lot of extreme energy there, and very extreme transformation, and very extreme unpredictabilities at very high levels. People in middle America, in Texas, Dallas has Chiron really close by, Oklahoma, but really it's this right here, the solar eclipse. Oh, I gotta bring down. I'm sorry. I gotta bring it down enough to see the whole thing? Here we go. Okay. Austin, Houston. Juno's going through Houston, but I'm telling you, it's with Chiron, Houston area. And this is the eclipse line. See the dotted line here? This is the eclipse line. Going right through Texas, going right through Oklahoma, and going right up through here. And I'm just trying to prepare people. Kansas, Nebraska, and Denver, and Colorado people have Mars and Neptune going through there, which is in a semi-square. Or sorry, it's conjunct. They're conjunct. There's going to be a lot of possible weird false flag stuff up here. And also military and media stuff. And a lot of stuff is going to be centered around these areas in the east. And a lot of energy is going to be centered, okay, like up here. A lot of energy is going to be centered down here. And if we look south, Mexico City has the exact eclipse south. Not going to be seen, but it does have it running through Mexico City. Mexico City is definitely going to be a hot zone in the next 6 months. Mars is going through Mexico as well. Neptune is going through Mexico as well. Also, look at these islands took a major hit during the hurricane that was of, when was that? I think it was of 2018, right? This is all Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn going through these areas. I'm telling you, there's going to be some sort of hurricane that's going to come up, and it's going to look like it's going to Florida, but it's going to move up, and it's going to come up here. And it's been a while since we've seen that one. And that's the Uranus that's going to pull that into Jupiter, Pluto. It's ironic that the West Coast is empty. But to remember that the West Coast saw a lot of activity. That is, even the last solar eclipse that went through America when it was in the North Node, when it was in our daytime, it actually went through the middle of America. There's a lot about middle America shifting, and a lot of attention that's going to be in these areas. And the other thing about Brazil is there's not much going on. So I don't think Brazil's going to be a big story that they keep saying. The big story is going to be Chile. It's Jupiter, Pluto going through Chile. And then parts of Peru. And the Saturn line's coming all the way down here through the west part of South America. So, I'm just trying to prepare people by looking at everything. And if we were to look up at Canada, this is the middle of Canada where all the oil is. Neptune rules oil, and it's going to be coming all the way through Oil Town. Fort McMurray, Edmonton right here is all oil town. There's oil up in this whole area. Pipelines are all right here. And with Uranus coming through Washington, D.C., dealing with technology, dealing with disruption of technology, with Jupiter, Pluto, financial, I think that this is going to be a lot of tech, financial weirdness, and a lot of financial resets, and a lot more activity in New York City, and a lot more activity in New Jersey, and this area getting more and more intense. And I'm just saying that from an astrological point of view to people. I'm just trying to give people all the facts, because I don't think that I've looked around on YouTube and I haven't seen one astrologer just like give people all the shit. Like, just here you go, be prepared. Like, and so when people start going, oh, I'm just gonna like move around, like, don't be scared when these things are there. Just know that there's going to be a lot of activity where you're at in those places, especially the Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto line or the solar eclipse line, especially because it's close by with Mars and Neptune. But, you know, it's really weird that we're seeing it really going to hit New York and Washington, D.C. a lot, and we're going to see a major hit also in Texas and Denver. And it's kind of weird, the Oklahoma thing. And it's kind of weird that stuff that was happening in the Midwest is going to, I think, calm down. I think we're going to see things move. And it's just weird that New York, there's too much in New York. There's too much. It's the only city in all of America that's going to have Pluto going directly through it. Pluto with Jupiter. So, like, I know the media is going to hype the opposite areas, but there's a lot of activity going on in these areas. And I'm just trying to prepare people because it's... And the main thing is the India-China border situation. That is the activation point that's going to start conflict and confrontation, and what side do people take. That's a bigger story than people realize. That's I would say the main story that we all need to be paying attention to right now is what the heck is going on here with India and China, because that is exactly where everything is hitting with the solar eclipse. Exactly, I just showed you on a map the exact line, right? The exact line. Oh, that put wrong. Gee, Merry Christmas. Doing this by myself here. So, I mean, I cannot make that up. Right on that border, bam, there's the solar eclipse. Like, boom. And then to see Mars as well go through India, Neptune go through India. They're getting a lot of activity. And then you have Korea that's going to have Uranus going through it, which is connected to Washington, D.C., right? So it's South Korea or North Korea. I think Washington, D.C. is going to have to make a choice of which one are we aligning with. And then you've got London that's going to have Chiron that's like, I just have to bite the bullet and pick whatever side I need to do it, or I might not agree with, or whatever. There's not going to be a lot of activity. Like England, I think, especially the UK, is going to be very lost and not know what to do and have to take just, it's a lot, like I said at the beginning of this show, 2003. That is when we had Sun and North Node in Gemini. That was mission accomplished year, but it was not mission accomplished. Remember that. It was the beginning of the Iraq War that lasted forever. Okay? So, just the sun hitting North Node. Then there's an eclipse on the North Node. And so this eclipse is going through here in this Jupiter-Pluto. And when we take a look back at, to finish this off, because I have to try and get a normal day back and go to sleep. But I wasn't going to let myself not do this. I know it might sound stupid, but it took me fucking like 3 hours to set this up. Like I redid that whole area to shoot that and walk over here, to come over here, you know what I mean? To be here, to then deliver you this. And I'm just letting you know that this eclipse is triggering and activating Mars intensely. Mars is going deep into the submersion of some very hard things after this eclipse, because I'm going to finish this. Just give me a sec, because that one image blew my system out. So that's Sunday, Monday. Here we go. Here's Monday. So Monday, after the eclipse, I put it a little bit later because I did it to the time that Neptune goes retrograde. Neptune goes retrograde on Monday. And we're going to see when Neptune comes retrograde at 2057, it's just going to stop. And Neptune's one of the longer retrogrades, okay? And I told you Mars is coming to 27, and I showed you in the Synchronata that I forgot, how that's called. I'm so bad. I'm Saturn the 3rd, Pluto the 3rd, Mars the 3rd, North Node, Chiron, Gemini. But I'm just telling you, 27 degrees Pisces is not fun. From 27 to 0 Aries is hell. So you better make some choices fast. And let go of your ego and your hopes and your dreams. Mars is going to ask the choice, like I said, coming into next week, as it squares the nodes. Are you just going to go follow some belief system and just some hopeful system and not look at any facts yourself? Are you going to be sheep? There's Neptune when it stations and goes, there's going to be, like I said, with the conflict that we're seeing with this China-India thing, there's a lot of distractions trying to take off that right now. But there's going to be major Mars coming in square to the nodes as it's coming into its home sign, as it's at the hardest aspect. Mars is not happy at the end of Pisces. And the moon, while Neptune comes retrograde, will be exactly in opposition to Jupiter and Pluto conjunction. Not easy. Not emotionally easy for the life changes or denying the changes, that you're going to be uncomfortable by not paying attention to at all the world that you were living in based upon you following what you think other people, what the other world. That's Saturn making a quincunx to the sun and the North Node. Following what other people are doing. Following how to live in the world. What this unwritten law of the world is saying. Getting lost in the fucking world belief system bullshit. It's not where the universe is telling us to go. The universe is telling you to go to figure out your own personal environment and emotional world that is not based upon Lost World. This is called Lost World Jurassic Park. I know it wasn't the best one. Maybe it was. But some people are in a lost world. And we are in a lost world when you start worrying and start living by what everybody is telling you to do, and you are lost in beliefs. You are not following your own inner guidance, and you are being deceived because you don't know how to connect to God. God is the answer. Spirit is the answer, not the media that is distracting you with Mars there and is pumping themselves up and directing people. And they've been directing people since the last 2 weeks of the lunar eclipse prior with the square. And look at this. When Neptune comes retrograde, Chiron and Lilith. Lilith really doesn't want to hang out with Chiron. You know why? Because Lilith, she gets what she really wants. She says, fuck you, God, I'm getting what I want. When she's with Chiron, she's like, what do you mean? Chiron, you have to accept what God's giving you and take it and hold it, and it's painful, and you got to accept it? You got to accept this? She has to learn a big lesson from Chiron. Like, she doesn't get what she really wants. She just can't say, fuck you, I'm doing whatever the fuck I want. People who are going to be that way, like, fuck this guy and this astrology, or fuck astrology, or fuck, I have free will, I can do whatever the fuck I want. No. I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to get the biggest, hardest ass beating of your life from your ego with Chiron and Lilith here. Not fun. They do not get along. You have to remember that we never consciously even knew about Chiron and Aries. You have to remember, Chiron and Aries, 69, up into the mid-70s. Watergate. Vietnam. Like, everybody learning how to express themselves, dealing with a crazy world and being like, fuck it, like, I'm going to wear my hair long. Like, I'm going to go dance at discos. You're not even allowed to do that right now. People have to grow their hair long just because they can't go get a cut at some places or whatever. People have to create their own dances at their own house. which is kind of the way Chiron Aries was. Everybody hung out their house, and then there was some discos, but it was like you did it at your house. There was house parties, and you can't even have a house party. So Chiron and Lilith are not happy together. They're like, we have to, like, Chiron's like, I'm trying to heal you, Lilith, but I don't know how to give you what you want because I take what's not wanted and accept it. And my ego in this weird lost world, and everybody who's been following the media's lost world to try and divert you on both left or right, global or non-global, you're getting swept away into your life being defined by whether you want to call that an alien or an AI system that is using this. Because I've been saying for years that Neptune and Uranus are in semi-square. Now, right now, they're not. They're 49 degrees apart. But when Uranus retrogrades back, guess what? It's going to come back to an exact semi-square by the end of this year. And I've been saying that there is an unknown AI, whether it's the quad computer that came out in October, ironically, of 2019, and is fucking somebody's plugging into that quad computer type, you know, what do people do? Like it can plug in every Facebook, every YouTube, every fucking situation in a quad computer and run the whole entire, every message you've ever sent of every single person on earth, every comment you left, and know the trigger points of everybody. And fucking, let's put it out, okay, that's, what would trigger people to break up the most, and when do they do it? Most couples freak out when the money's bad and the stress is on them about the world during war and da-da-da. Okay, let's do that. Fucking what? Let's throw that out there. Let's chum that shit out. And that's why I'm trying to wake people up that the real news story based off the astrology is China and India. But I guarantee you're just hearing this right now, or you saw it and you didn't think anything of it. Because that's the chum. You're getting red herringed right now. Red herring is being pulled away from the real scent. And the last horoscope I have to show you, but as we finish this Monday, now that we're going to have Neptune retrograde, look at this. It's just Uranus and Mars. Let's just cut it from there. Don't look down here. Don't look up here either. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets retrograde. I think we saw 6 planets in like 2013 during Pisces season. But I don't know. I'd have to remember. I'd have to go back to my logs here, but in my ephemeris. But you don't see this much. And you definitely don't see it with Mars and Uranus direct. And you don't see it with Mars being the fastest planet. That's ego. That's war. That's your desires and your needs and your wants and your actions and your courage and your strength to deal with it at the most hardest degree. 27 degree through 29 degree of Pisces is the hardest for Mars to deal with. It is in the swamp. It is lost. It is subconscious. It is having to break away from things that hold you back because this world is going to change so fast, so intense. And I just saw you the reset of the solar eclipse, but it's a north node solar eclipse in the world. Now Pluto is directly through New York City. China-India border. Wuhan City was Saturn. Chiron and all the stuff in Madrid. Spain is looking like something is brewing there. Not going to be Brazil. Going to be Chile. Going to be the west coast of South America. Going to be Texas. Going to be intense through Oklahoma, through the stuff going on that's happening in Colorado is weird with Neptune and Mars. With military. That's NORAD. We might see everybody, maybe even the president going to NORAD. There was a movie that I recommend everybody to watch. It's called Red State. It's a movie where North Korea teamed up with Russia and a bunch of other countries, and they invaded America, and everybody had to fucking figure this shit out. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just saying, like, there's writings on the wall of people, they're trying to build fear in every way, the dark right now. And they're going to use this Mars as it comes home and to retrograde and to make all these hard squares to Saturn and stuff. And people are going to have to be prepared for a 6 months here that is going to blow their heads, ideas of and identification. Right now you already feel like you're in a psychedelic world, but not in a more glowy positive. And if you're feeling that way, it's because you probably are on a psychedelic, or you probably are just mulched out on so much marijuana or so much alcohol or so much something that you're just not fucking seeing the whole picture here. That's the hard part of all this Pisces shit that's going on, and the stop of Neptune is not being awake or totally glammed out by the media and totally following what the media and the belief systems are and all that, which is a red herring to the other main stories and things coming behind your back. Mars and Pisces is like, I didn't see that coming. I didn't listen to my own inner guidance. I got Mars and Pisces can get spelled. I'm putting out these warnings for so long that I'm doing this extended deep astrology in the middle of the morning for me right now because of the fact that I couldn't go to sleep tonight and I couldn't live my normal life. And I'll be honest with you, the last 3 days have been the hardest days of my life spiritually, preparing people and myself to come out and bring all this out to people and just say, here you go. I'm giving, because that's my job. That's why I came on the planet. I didn't come around here to I don't live a normal life because I put everything to spirit. I put everything to God. But it becomes moments where I'm like, fuck, you really want me to say this? That my guides, that source was just like, you got to get this fucking message out no matter what. I was like, okay, I know why I've been feeling like shit for the last 3-4 days, because I've been feeling what the energy is going to feel like. And for those that are just completely blind, completely not paying attention, completely numbed out, completely fucking lost in the media world, completely lost in this whole idea of, and this is massive separatism coming of the collective. And this is also herding of the cattle now that we are entering into a solar north node eclipse that is going to be in Cancer in the opposite signs of Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, which will be, and with a quincunx to Saturn, and with massive, massive undertones that are hidden in Sag that are people's beliefs of how things should look, how things should be, how the world should be when we are in a redefining complete new world. Which we need to understand it. We need to figure it out first. We need to keep looking deeper into things and understanding it and testing things before we know anything truly. But we also can't be just living in a fear-based world. We can't be living in a world where we are just so going to lock ourselves down in fears of Jupiter, Pluto, and Capricorn, and we're locking ourselves from experiencing the world we know we should be living. But that's the problem, is this Jupiter-Pluto is about doors majorly closing, and with Saturn retrograding and coming back in, it is creating the tightest space in the zodiac of the two biggest planets, and the biggest planet energetically that's invisible, that fucking is exploding those two without a south node, and with the oppositions coming of the new moon that follows this new moon, the next new moon is going to oppose Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. That this month, that this new moon brings, and that all this shit brings is going to peak in this next month, and it's going to change the world. And July looks crazy. And just I'll be honest, you're going to feel it with this eclipse, because it's going to be still in between eclipses, and we still have a lunar coming. It's going to be gnarly. And it's going to be a lunar eclipse in Capricorn where the moon is not happy. It's a detriment. At least the moon right now is going to be at its home place. But this is going to be people in a weird world trying to find home and either missing the boat, missing that home, because they're in a belief system and going into a lost world, or leaving a lost world, leaving a world of numbness, leaving a world of being asleep, leaving a world of being around energies that are not conducive to contributing to your whatever your destiny is defined by God, whatever your destiny is defined by spirit, that was why you came here. and not wasting it away. And this is what my warning was about the plague, was I said that it comes through to people that are not in alignment. And it's also being used for other reasons than they're using this whole entire thing for way other things. Like, it's not even about it. Like, people are lost in the idea that it's real. But look at the Gemini data about it. It is not what you think. It is not what they push you out to believe because of the just facts. If it was killing half the population, yeah, that's the idea of a true situation. You know, it's ironic, is like, I think there was the famine in China that killed 1 million people. Just famine. There's the wars that have killed millions. And I think that people are like starting to look at the facts with a twist instead of just, that's the Gemini fact, and let me get my emotions wrapped around understanding those facts. And what else is going on? Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn have an agenda that is big and it is hidden with Pluto, and it has got another thing. And I've been saying this thing for a long time, and people got to wake up right now. And you better know where you're at. This isn't about running away as much as it is just knowing you're in the right space in your truth and in your life, and that you're not in a place to where if things got really weird. And I say watch the movie Red State because of the weirdness of that. They all just thought it was a power outage, and they were all just getting out of high school. And then the next thing you know, there's paratroopers from North Korea, and it's like, where's my girlfriend? Where's my boyfriend? Where's this? Like, and you have to like, and some people got captured, and then you have to go do crazy. Like, you have to think about who you're around. Where do you want to be around? What would happen in the blink of a minute when the world is going to go blop and drop the true, what all the things that have been going on since the beginning of 2020 and the end of 2019? And if you really want to look at the astrology over the last 37 and 38 years since the last Saturn, Pluto, and Libra, that finished with January 12th Saturn, Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, the 37 years, why? It's all coming out of what it was all planned to be. And there's forces that are against it, and there's forces that are with it. And this is a major light and dark shit. And people who think the light is one thing might actually be in the dark. And that's the deception. There is people out there that are saying that they are light, but they're really the dark. And that is the number one thing that you need to pay attention to. And the one place that you would need to pay attention to know where that is, if you want the honest truth, is the deception of Neptune, which is the media. And it's with Mars. And that is connected to the Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn area. So, I think the last chart I have for you all is Tuesday. And we have the moon coming into Leo to finally break apart a long time coming. Because if I just do the transits of right now and I move this to days, okay? So, Thursday, Sun and Moon in Gemini. Thursday night. All day Friday, all day Saturday, Sun, Moon in the same sign. All day Sunday, all day Monday, and all day until almost Tuesday. So, for some people, it might be all day Tuesday day, but just depends. You're talking about the longest Sun-Moon conjunction in an eclipse that I have seen since 2012. with the north node, though, not the south node, which almost makes it kind of like, with Venus there, like you had a little bit of help. There's no help on this one, except the help for yourself and God. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, choose wisely here, because what's amazing about this, and I don't even know if I want to say the word amazing, but, and I'll use a highlighter for a second, is finally the moon will be out of Leo, or I mean out of Cancer and into Leo, to finally end the cycle of the longest dark and new moon solar eclipse cycle that you've seen with a node and with a Venus retrograde since 2012. And they shift on a solstice. This is not normal. This is where the universe does 2012 weird shit. And I don't think it's ironic, because I know a lot of people go, well, it's December 21st, 2012. Well, in my book, it was the 6 months buildup to 2012. The compression of time, if we understand Terence McKenna and we understand the time wave zero, that the compressions of time had flopped and then flopped days before December 21st, 2012, and then fucking boom, you're in a new fucking reality. We are replaying and going back and trying to understand, what the hell did I do the last 8 years? And how did I get here? And everything has changed. Yeah, it was 8 years. The Mayans are right. We were moving into a new world. And this is the new world peak. Because it was that cycle of Venus, and the Mayans used Venus more than anything, and they use it for some reason connected. And this is the end of the year in the Mayan year eclipse of timelessness and the white wizard, and where you have to know the magic and follow the magic, or you are being spelled by a wizard and you do not listen to your gut and you follow the media and you follow your mind, not your soul, not your truth, not in your mind of your belief mind or your persuasion. You are being persuaded. You are being, the better term would be peer pressured. You're being peer pressured to live your life in a peer pressured way. And that is the illusion. And that is the harshest illusion that is going on the planet right now. Peer pressure. Through the media, through your environment and who you're around. That who you're around is peer pressuring you on how to be. Peer pressuring you in your life. Peer pressuring you in the life that you think that you should be living. And you're either delusionally manic about that, or you're so sovereign in your soul that you don't allow the peer pressure to be that way. Oh, it's cool. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And like everybody's doing this and everybody's doing that. Okay, go follow that fucking train into Disasterville. That's what's coming. The events that are coming is all pre-planned. And I've been saying it, and I don't want to say it, but I will write it for you, because this is what's coming. What do you think they're going to do with all the people that are not in school? What was the major event that was hard for people with Uranus Taurus especially, and with Chiron Aries? Drafts. Vietnam, World War II. Draft. Why do you think that they're imploding the economy on purpose? What happens when the National Defense Act happens? Do I really have to show people? I mean, I was in the military. Emergency Act. Okay. Here we go. All right. The act empowers the president to activate special powers during a crisis, but all 50 states did, and the president. So the whole country and the president did. Okay. there's emergency powers given for military, construction, and so forth. They used it for health services, but where is it? It's right here. I'm going to do it. It's the selective service. Here you go. Selective Service System. This is the draft. Is an independent agency with the executive branch of the U.S. federal government. It is not. Selective Service is not part. Selective Service, is not. Our mission is to register and maintain a system when authorized by the President and Congress rapidly provides personnel in a fair and equitable manner while managing an alternative service program for conscientious objectors. If you look at the act, so what is it? Men 18 through 25 years old who have registered, 91%. Numbers of names and addresses for file of men 18 through 25 years old, nearly 17 million. The agency, 27 million was just enacted in 2020. The legislation under which the authority operates in the military selective service shall be maintained as an active, but if you see the Military Selective Service Act, there's things in there about when the National Emergency Act is enabled, that this gets pumped up no matter what. And that's what I'm trying to do, is show you that. But I don't want to waste your all time, but look it up. These are how many people were drafted in World War II with Uranus and Taurus into Gemini. 10 million in America. Vietnam, 1.8 million with Chiron and Aries. World War II, November 1940, Uranus and Taurus. So JFK set up an executive order granting an exemption from conscription for married men between the ages of 19 and 26. Right? So if you were married. Johnson later rescinded the exemption for married men without children by executive order. Who must register? Under current law, all male U.S. citizens between 18 and 25. And where's Mars going to retrograde? It's going to retrograde in Aries. Men are required to register 30 days of their 18th birthday. I joined the military 1 week after my 18th birthday. So I didn't go through that. The male-only military draft registry was ruled to be unconstitutional by a federal judge in the National Coalition for Men versus the Selective System. Following the ruling, the Selective Services legislation reports things continue here at selective services they have in the past, which is men between the ages of 18 and 25 are required to register with selective service at this time until we receive guidance from either the court or from college. Women are not required to register. This is like the lottery, the Monopoly game. It's like a community service card or community, what was it? Community chest or whatever, or community, or it's like a chance card too. And then you end up going to MEPS. Like every other military. And I'm just telling you, I just know that this is what's coming. I just know under the Emergency Act that there was something about the selective service up in here. $136 emergency powers. Oh, here we go. Congressionally authorized emergency presidential are sweeping and dramatic and range from suspending all laws regulating chemical and biological weapons, including the ban on human testing, which was passed, right? Or excess emissions penalty upon petition of a state governor, passed, to authorizing and instructing military construction projects using any existing defense appropriations for such military construction, to drafting any retired Coast Guard officers, past, or enlisted members past 1949 into active duty regardless of inability of selective service. They don't care. Selective service system is triggered in that event. All of this that you have been seeing was for a completely other situation. Completely. Because trying to do that a year ago would have been insane. People would have been, everybody's been out rioting. Everybody's already been out not happy. Everybody's been doing things. I know more people in my life that have just joined the military because they don't know what to do. They lost their jobs and everything. What do you think's coming? With all this Mars activity, and Mars being the fastest planet right now, and being squared by the lunar eclipse, and being in all these crazy aspects with Jupiter, Pluto right now during the solar eclipse, it's enhancing the military around the world. It's enhancing Jupiter, Pluto with Mars. It's enhancing, and where's Jupiter, Pluto? Going right through New York City, going right through Washington, D.C., and it's going right through fucking China. And that's going to be the two countries, and India is the catalyst in between it all. Bam! And that is my horoscope for you all. Spiritually speaking, it's about being prepared for this world that, you know what, I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm going to be honest. I'm an astrologer. I can give you the energies, but it's North Node and Gemini, and I was born with that, so I'm giving you the facts that I know from what I see and making predictions off. So I'm giving you a hypothesis. And I can't tell you if that's true or not. We're going to have to play it out and see. Every hypothesis I've given out, especially the ones for the last 3 years about, I mean, I told you a plague was coming for years in 2020. I said there would be civil unrest that was going to divide the collective. I went deep into my astrology and my predictions for 2020, which you can go by. I recorded April 24th, and it was weeks before protests that we were going to see Civil War aspects that we've never seen before, and it hasn't even peaked yet. So I'm just letting you know this selective service thing is no joke. Why do you think they created a new it would be sixth defense, which is the Space Force, and they just sent up a bunch of stuff. They need to fill in a lot of other positions, and there's some reason they sent up some sort of satellite, right? That was a high frequency, super high frequency emitter. I'm just like telling you all to like wake up, get out of the left or right political game. Everybody thinks I'm stuck in that. I'm not. I'm an astrologer. I'll always pick a side of whatever makes the most sense. because we end Tuesday with the moon finally coming out of this craziness, and people are going to try and find happiness and stuff, and it's going to connect with Venus. It's going to be stationing because Venus comes direct on the 25th. But we're going to have a very weird 22nd, 23rd, 24th, because we're going to be seeing this Mars here very fast. We're going to be seeing Venus stopping, and we're going to be in a Mercury retrograde and all the other planets retrograde. And here's Jupiter and Pluto now at 24. And this week, it's the buildup that's coming to Jupiter-Pluto conjunction and Saturn getting ready to come back a week from then into Capricorn. And it's going to be weird with Neptune stopped, still not moving, 2057. And the moon is about to enter into the opposition to Saturn, which doesn't feel good. And so right when the moon comes into a new sign, it's like opposing Saturn, not happy, and it's going to square Uranus in a T-square. But it will connect with Venus, and it will be retrograde stopped. Wanting exciting and happiness, but there could be, did you make the choice? Did you not? Did you? And the sun's in Cancer, it's going to be emotional, and Mercury's going to be retrograde on the United States sun, and also the degree and where we're going to have the lunar eclipse. And the nodes are still at 29. They've not moved since May 5th. And they don't move till July 10th, July 9th. So it's edgy. We're on the edge of a whole new world, literally, and the sun's crossing over in an eclipse. And right now you're watching this prior, and it's official. And this seed's like a stamp. That new world. Bam. And this is not an easy transit with the moon, Leo. It's not going to be happy unless it really followed the truth and really looked deeply at your relationships and didn't get stuck in weird shit. It was square Neptune for a month when it stationed. Now it's going to station at 5, have the moon there, but you know what? It's going to be in a it's just hard for me to, get people to see all of it all, And these are hard waters with Mars here. It gets very sloppy, or shedding off as much as you can. And we're getting ready to see Chiron come retrograde. We're getting ready for Uranus to come to 10 degrees. This is going to take us to levels we've never been before in our lives. To crazier stuff than you even saw in the last 6 months. That was a South Node eclipse. That's a weak eclipse. This is a strong eclipse. With Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter are going to be all together in the same time with no South Node. So, and with Mars coming into Aries, and for an extended stay. And the Venus retrograde ending in Gemini, which is connected to 2012, which... Look at your life in 2012. The outer world was giving you no issues. It was your inner world shit. Now you're realizing that your environment that you're in does matter. Even though it did matter then. It was a lot softer. Now it's much harder. And so it was like easier then to make an internal choice because it was like a softer outside. It's a lot harder when the outside's harder, but you're internally like, fuck. You're looking too much at the hard outside instead of realizing that that's what's causing the hard inside. Well, that was a long 2.5 hour deep astrology, and there's 1,600 people in here, and I just want to thank you all for being here, and thank you all for listening to what I had to say, and I hope I gave you enough information to help you through this one. I know there's still going to be confusion through it all, but you're going to have to wake yourself up through your own illusions right now. And you have to wake yourself up and not get locked into beliefs and persuading and peer pressure and worried about what other people think. You're going to be in the most uncomfortable place with a solar eclipse, quincunx Saturn in Aquarius, because you're worried about what other people think. You're worried about how it affects this person and it affects that person. Like, you need to go to what makes you feel good and comfortable in your life, or you will not feel good at all. You will feel empty. And there's nothing to fulfill the emptiness with Rahu. You got to remember that. Rahu has because his head's cut off. Rahu's head's cut off from the body, which is Ketu, that there's no stomach. And when it's in Cancer, solar eclipse, and the North Node's in Gemini, its stimulation is eating and emotionally not enough. It's not enough because, especially with the quincunx there to Saturn, you're too worried about trying to play how the world and how your circle or how your groups or how the people of the world think about you, how your family and your friends think, and all this shit. Wake-up call time. I'm sending you all my best. I really hope people listen. This is not normal. Sun and moon for multiple days in the same sign that they'll be in together, and an eclipse on the North Node with the quincunx Saturn and Mars squaring the nodes. And Mars being the fastest planet, and it's only Mars and Uranus for about 4 days. 3.5, 4 days. Direct. Every other planet retrograde. And those two throw a wild fucking storm. And there's the real draft that we just saw, and then there's the spiritual draft. Who's being drafted to do the light work and the spiritual work, which means that you have to ditch your beliefs and just go into truth and be willing to look at both sides of things and not get stuck. Or you're being drafted into sheep world and numbness and emptiness because you're too worried about, well, what would my friends think if I went here? What would my parents think if I did this? What would my partner think if I went there? Oh. Just get yourself drafted then to that world. Because a draft, when you erase the D, is a raft to someplace. Which raft are you taking? Are you defining your raft through what God's raft is taking you to go towards and not worried about what other people think? Or are you drafting yourself because others define the raft? That's what a draft is when others do it. And Saturn in Aquarius is the ultimate lesson to not follow others. And I don't know how to get that one much more clear to people. I don't know how to get that one much more clear. People think that it's all about community and getting people together. No, Saturn is betrayed by his son, Kronos. And others banished him. Others banished him. He was the ruler of the universe and taken out of that position and convinced by his own son, who convinced other deities and other gods, you're not the ruler of the universe. You're out of here. It's only Jupiter, Zeus, the son of Kronos, that comes back and, as the child, it doesn't get eaten and does put Kronos in his place, Saturn in his place. So Saturn in Aquarius is not the glam story that you think it is. You know, I always use the example of Nirvana. Okay, Nirvana was edgy and different. He also committed suicide when Saturn went into Pisces because he felt banished by people so much. Because he was so unique, Kurt Cobain. And sometimes, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy going on your own road to being different. But it's your truth. But with all the Pisces, right? And this is more intense Pisces. When you go down your own road and your truth, you got to stay clear in your head. You got to stay away from drugs and alcohol and getting lost and shit and stay on the spiritual path. And that's not easy shit. During these times, and the sensitivity is extreme. And that's what I opened this whole show up with. Extremes. Extremes. massive extremes. This is not light. This is not fluffy. This is not easy. And this looks at your home, literally, and yourself, and your physical home, and it looks at your environment, and you need to look out your window and go, am I in the right place? Am I in the right place if fucking people started coming down from the skies? I use a dramatic analogy, but who knows? We actually might see that. Maybe it's, who knows? Maybe it's a different way. Or it's called red. Red. I think it was called the Red Draft Movie. No, or Red. No, not Red Dwarf. I forgot the name of it. Red. No. I don't know why I forgot the name of it right now. Red Dawn. Red Dawn. Right? Because if you look at the images of Red Dawn, right? Like, you're just sitting at your house one day. Hold on. Original. Oh, there was an original movie about this. The invading armies planned for everything except for 8 kids called the Wolverines. I guess there was an original. It was a remake. It's kind of crazy. But I recommend people watch this movie. Maybe it'll scare some people, but actually, there's something connected to this movie. It was, what year? No, that's the original Red Dawn. Red Dawn 2012. So the idea was set. North Node and Venus is actualizing it. I'll end with that. Sending you lots of great energy as much as I can from my little studio today that I did for you all here at the High Vibe Studios. Make sure that you join highvibe.tv, and I'm wishing you all the best. And I don't, if honestly you think all this is bullshit, I'm cool with it. Like, don't even trip. This is my truth to you, and do your own facts and come up with your own truth. This is just information I'm giving, but I'm not giving you belief. Who knows? It's my hypothesis, though. All right, everyone. I'm out. Later.